Hello everyone and welcome back to another lecture. In this video, we are going to be talking about client versus server. This is something you might feel that is very basic and some people might already think they know, but I bet in this lecture I'm going to share things that you probably do not know yet. Before we start with this video, if you're new to this channel is about teaching things in depth. AI is here, and what brings an edge to you now is to learn things in depth that is going to keep you relevant in the industry. AI still cannot do things like debugging and complicated architectures, and to be able to do that efficiently you need to be able to understand every concept of software engineering in depth. That is where complete frontend comes in. I'm sharing all the knowledge that people share in a paid course for absolutely free in these lectures, so there is nothing stopping you. I'm not going to sell any course to you, so you can just watch my lectures here in the complete frontend channel at YouTube itself. So getting back to this lecture, guys, in this lecture we are going to be talking about client versus server model. Client versus server, people might be usually thinking that client server is also equivalent to front end and back end. You are partially right, and you might be partially mistaken. Client versus server doesn't exactly mean front end and the back end, but they do happen on the front end and the back end sides of the program. When we get to any program or a software, you will identify that there is always a front end and back end to it. So what is a front end and what is a back end? The front end of the application runs on the client, and the back end of the application usually runs on the server side. There could be situations where the front end is also built on the server, something like Next.js, where it is server side rendered, but we'll get to that in the future lectures. So what is client side? So client side is nothing but things that happen on the user's device. So here, as you will see that the client is nothing but your computer, your laptop, or your mobile phone in general. But that is where your code, the software of your program runs in. So it is like a person that is actually showing you or helping you show the front end of the application. So what constitutes as the front end of an application? A front end of an application could be things like the UI, like the styles, the colors that you see, the buttons that you see. If I have to take an example, I hope you guys use Instagram or WhatsApp. So if I would take the example of WhatsApp, all the messages that are printed, the sent messages aligned to the right side, the received messages aligned to the left side, the chat history on the left, all those setting buttons, all these things are front end rendered, right? So similarly, the messages actually reach the other person, so it will need to hit a server, and the server will redirect it to the right person over there. That part constitutes of the server side and the backend side of things. Like I said, client side or server side or front end or back end aren't quite the same. So let's understand why that is so in this lecture. So what is the client server model? So much of the internet is based on the client server model. So if you take any application, for example, like I said, it always has a front end and the back end side of things. And there are many things that only the front end will handle, and there are certain things that the back end will handle. Usually client is nothing but a device that enables the user to communicate with the application. Like I said again, it is usually things like laptops, smartphones, desktop computers, and whatnot. Okay, and client devices send the requests to the servers for web pages and applications, and servers will respond with the responses. So what I mean by that is, when you actually have something like a message sent on WhatsApp, so you say, hey, I want to send a message, that hi message that you want to send to someone. So you send that hi message, and it goes through your front end. So what is your client over here? That is your smartphone. What is the front end over here? The front end is nothing but that constitutes of all the UI stylings that enables you to send that message on the front end. So every single thing, such as your button, the color, even the border, every single thing is coded up using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you're a person who already knows HTML, CSS, JavaScript, this is not new to you. But if you are someone who's new to this, you will understand that every single thing in an application has to be coded out. Computer does not take automatic decisions by itself. Code is written, which helps things happen. Every single click or what needs to be done has to be told explicitly to the computer, hey, this is what you're going to do. So let's understand what would happen if the application is running on your computer. So if the application is running on your computer for something like an app that will enable you to watch movies, and the movies are also stored on your computer. You switch off your computer, you cannot watch the movies anymore. If you haven't saved a file, then you could lose it as well. Server side doesn't work that way. There is a remote machine. Usually what is a server? A server is nothing but a remote machine. They say cloud. There was a time people used to say, oh, it's stored in the cloud. Would it be actually on the sky? No, cloud is nothing but a remote computer that is, or someone else's machine. Companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google usually have a huge warehouse where only servers are present. Servers do heat up. It's just like your car. If you drive it for too long, its engine heats up. Just like that, your computer heats up, right? While you're doing high processor tasks. So similarly, that would also heat up, so that has cooling mechanisms and whatnot. So these servers are nothing but things that you can store via the internet. So similarly, when you have your Google Drive, OneDrive, and all those things, they're nothing but servers or storage devices stored remotely, and you can just hit them via the internet and you'll be able to securely access them. So this helps. Why? Because, for example, your smartphone goes off, your messages are already backed up. You can just get another phone and start logging into your account from the new phone, and then download your messages, whatever was saved. So your messages are not really lost ever. So they are stored in the server. Server, like I said, is maintained in such a way that they have backups. So usually servers are stored in such a way that they have 3 points on earth, essentially. Like imagine this is your earth, and they usually store it at 3 points on earth, that any catastrophe doesn't lose your data. They usually keep 3 copies of it. That is why storage devices online are also pretty costly compared to what you have at your home. Got it? So now these copies will ensure that if one thing goes down, your data will be available from the other node. If that goes down, it will be available from the other node. So you see, like I said, even though individual servers may go down, you don't have to worry about it. You will always have the backup for it. Now let's understand why servers will be providing to multiple clients. When you say server and client sounds like a person who's asking for something or for a service. So, and server is someone who's actually owning it and giving it back. It does sound like that. The reason it's server is nothing but a device that provides or serves requests for multiple clients. So there might be multiple servers handling multiple clients, or there could be one server handling multiple clients as well. So what do I mean by that? Say you have an application, you have hosted your backend in this server. So you put your data, let's just say. So let's just take the application, example of the application Referbo here. Referbo is nothing but a project I'm working on. So if you observe here, you will see all these devices, all these offers, laptops, mobiles, all these things here. All these things are rendered on the client. So on the client, you can see this, but when I click on this, all these devices come up, right? So I am accessing this through my computer now. Now I might want to access it via my phone as well. So if I have to access it via my phone, it will give me the same data, right? So where does that come from? This comes from the server itself. The server saves this data. So in this application over here, we have also architected it in such a way that things come from the backend and are rendered in real time. So if something goes wrong in your system, this page won't be lost. So you will just be able to access it via any other device. By the way, you might be wondering what is Referbo. Referbo is just a platform, one-stop platform where you can buy refurbished devices. So we have gathered a lot of trusted dealers, because there is no way of now knowing whether the dealer is trusted or not. So we have done the hard job for you. We have filtered the dealers, and they will be able to actually give you the quality products. This is launching soon. Feel free to pre-book, by the way. So getting back, if you get back to the client and server model, like I was saying, the server now can access multiple clients, or it can provide to multiple clients, and multiple clients might also access multiple servers. So what do I mean by that? So you see 3 clients over here. So client 1 is a computer, client 2 is another computer, and there is a smartphone, and there are 3 servers over here. Now if I want to access, say, Netflix, what's going to happen? The first thing, when I need to access Netflix, you're going to type netflix.com and hit enter. Now you will be hitting the DNS servers. For example, this could be the DNS servers. Now, if you don't know DNS, guys, please check out the DNS lecture in this playlist itself. I have explained in depth every single concept about how DNS exactly works under the hood. DNS is something that I was asked a question by Adobe as well. So I would highly suggest you to know this. So just go check it out after this lecture. For now, you can think that DNS is a server that provides you the IP address of a website. So like you might or might not know, every single website that is your domain is associated with an IP like this, okay, which is a unique IP that cannot be repeated across the world. So now when you hit that, the DNS server is going to tell you that, hey, this is the IP that you got to hit. So it's going to tell the client now that, hey, the IP of netflix.com is this. Now what's going to happen? It's going to say, hey, so I want to hit that particular IP. So that might be in another server. Now you are hitting another server. So one client will be hitting multiple servers for the sake of getting whatever they need, such as now if it wants to perhaps get some media and probably that is stored in another Netflix server, say like media.netflix.com, for example. I don't know how they store it, by the way, but I'm saying that if they have stored it like that, now this client could again hit that API. Now it will figure out where it is present. So it will go to the DNS, it will get the IP address, and it's going to hit that particular media storage, for example. Okay, so one client can actually address multiple hit multiple servers, and multiple servers will also be interacting with multiple clients as well. So it is many to many model over here. Now, in web development, client side refers to everything in a web application that is displayed or takes place on the client or user side. This includes what we see, like it could be the images, the text, or anything, right? So when you open a website over there, you'll be able to see certain things. For example, you'll be able to see these images, you'll be able to see this text over here, you'll be able to see this. You see there is a border radius over here, the image is on the center, there is a rating, there is a text, and there is also a price over here, right? So all these things will be accessed via the servers only. So the UI, so all these things that you see are on the UI, and they will be, the data will be given back by the server, is what I mean. Okay, now you use HTML, CSS and JavaScript to be able to write that, or any framework that is built on top of that, such as your React or Angular. Now the browser will be able to interpret this code, and it will be able to show it in a nice way like I showed you just now. Okay, so there are many business applications as well. For example, when you open Netflix, you might see that when you hover on a particular tile, it starts becoming bigger, and then it starts showing it, or temporarily showing it to you. So if you see in Referbo as well, so if I for example, if I hover on any of this, did you see that it becomes bigger, right? So this is not happening on the server side. All of this logic to show the user that, oh, you are hovering on this right now, so your highlight is over here, is happening on the client side. This is all on the client side. Okay, so it's not making a request to the server to ask, hey, a user is hovering on this, what should I do? So all these kinds of business logic is already there, and it will know exactly what to do. For example, I might want to scroll through a few things as well. So if I just go to all products, all category over here, so this scrolling, now it's showing all the other products, right? It knows where the products are. The page is already ready, and it will be able to show that for you. So all these things are happening via the client itself and not the server. And you might be wondering why that is the case. The reason that is the case is because you don't need to ask the server for all these things, and it could delay the user to show those things, right? Because it has to go through the internet and get back to you, and only then will you be able to do it. So that is at least a couple of seconds of delay. So you'll be seeing the loading bar. Whenever the server is not responding as fast enough, or whenever your internet or your device is not fast enough, there is something called as latency. That is the time. That could be any time. So latency of X means how much time it took for a particular task to be done. So I'll be making a particular small lecture on latency after this, so you'll be able to check it out. But for now, you can think that, for example, if you make a request to the server and the server does something and then gets back, so there is a time when the server does something, right? So that is the latency of the server, and the overall round trip latency is nothing but the time taken from your client for the request to go to the backend via the internet and then come back and then render. So that time, the whole time, is the overall latency of the application's response. So the user will always see the worst case latency, that is not just the server latency, because user will get to see it only after the front end gets the response, processes it, and then shows something on the UI. So you should be careful about where you put your code. Much like your server, client side means that everything happens on the server instead of the client. In the past, nearly all the business logic ran on the server side, but now the computer machines, the users machines, are much faster and much capable of doing things. So things can be done, like the dynamic web pages that I showed you, can be done on the UI as well. So like front end and the client side, people do confuse. Backend is also a term that that is a term for a process that takes place on the server. Although the backend only refers to the types of processes that happen on the server, it is not the server side itself. Server side might do many other things. Now, you might be wondering what is the difference between client side and server side. So on the client side, there are many other things that are not UI related that happen as well. There are things like web workers. There are other things that are happening under the hood, like web workers, runners, and many other things that could be happening, loggers that happen under the hood that may not be visible to the user. But that does not mean that is not front end. I mean, it does account to front end development, but I wouldn't say that is the front end of the application. That is the UI of the application, but that is not only the front end of the application. So that comes in the client side work. So that is not just the front end side of work. So when you take the front end of the application, you should be thinking like the UI things that are happening on the user side when certain things are being done or the dynamic web pages are rendered. Now, what is the backend then? So everything on the backend side. So backend languages are multiple languages are present on the backend side. So it is not just one language. For the front end side, I would say most of the code is written on JavaScript itself. Without JavaScript, there cannot be a front end. All the major browsers now support JavaScript or JavaScript frameworks to be able to run on the front end. So what are JavaScript? JavaScript is nothing but a programming language of the internet is how we call it. And what are the frameworks built on top of it or libraries built on top of it? You could think about React.js, AngularJS, Next.js, and all those things, but they are all built on JavaScript. Now for the backend though, that is not the case. Backend, there are multiple languages. You can think about C#, you can think about .NET, you can think about Java, Python, Node, and many other things. So people who are starting up with learning, you should probably go with JavaScript, because on the backend as well, there is a language that you can learn with JavaScript, that is Node.js. So you'll be able to develop both the front end and the back end of the application that way. But having said that, you should be able to eventually scale into other languages that are present on the backend, like C# and other things, because the top tech companies usually rely on such solid backend languages for backend development. So what is client-side scripting now? Client-side scripting is nothing but the scripts that are run on the front end. That is nothing but the JavaScript, right? Oh, that's where the script came from. Anyway, so on the client device, usually that is the browser or any supported UI device that is on the front end. That is nothing but the client-side scripting. Like I said, JavaScript is the universally supported language. And on the backend is nothing but server side, as I told you, which is nothing but the languages that you can also use JavaScript to write the backend using Node.js, or you can just learn any other languages like Java or Python or C#. Now, how do server side processes work in a serverless architecture? So there is something called as a serverless computing as well. All server side or backend processes still run on the servers instead of the client device, but they are not developed on any specific server or set of servers. So backend processes will be cut into smaller functions and they will be called on demand. Now you don't need to get deep dived into this right now, but just know that there is also something called as the serverless architecture. If you're interested to read about it, please do go read about it. So I hope you are clear about what is front end, client side, and what is backend and server side. I hope this clears up your fundamental concepts on the front end and backend and client and server. I'll see you in the next one. If you have any doubts, please comment in this lecture below. If you watched till the end of this lecture, please do drop a comment and like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching Complete Front End.